Good morning everyone, and welcome to the sunrise safari on this rather chilly start in the Sabi Sands. It's cold and actually quite windy, 14 degrees centigrade, which is 54 degrees Fahrenheit. So definitely rubbing our hands together to keep warm. Bit of an adaptation after the last few really hot days. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Jaylee, and I have Jeandré on camera with me this morning. And on Wendy, heading off towards the Djuma Dam, is Brent with Bryan on camera. And if you are joining us for the first time, this is a live safari. So everything that you're seeing on your screens is happening right now on our little small piece on Djuma and Arathusa in the Sabi Sands Game Reserve. So we're off towards Arathusa this morning to see if we can follow up not only on Madiba, but maybe check and see if those reports of Junior on Simbambili are actually correct. The guides reported to James yesterday afternoon that they'd seen one young male lion with a sub-adult lioness. So it could well be Junior and that missing sub-adult from the Nkuhuma Pride. And we're definitely keeping our fingers crossed in that respect. And for that reason, we're going to start up and head across and see what we can find. Now, although it is rather chilly out here, the birds are definitely happy out and about. And when we started, you might have heard a lot of fork-tailed drongos chirping away. It's the wonderful thing about this time and this change of season is that we get to hear the birds a lot more. We also have to brush up on all of our various insect and frog calls that might have got a little bit rusty during the winter months when we don't hear them. Now I'm really very hopeful that this lion does turn out to be Junior, and especially that one sub-adult lioness. I would really like to believe that it's the Nkuhuma lioness. How on earth she's gone missing and survived for as long as she has is quite phenomenal, but it's not unheard of. Now, a couple of years ago in an area that I worked, an entire lion pride broke out of, it was a closed system, so a fenced reserve, and they broke out and they left behind one of their very young sub-adults whose name was Frankie, and they disappeared off. They were gone. And we sort of pretty much assumed that Frankie was dead. And it was 2 years later when we found a very thin, very sad looking lioness who'd managed to survive all on her own for that period of time. And luckily for Frankie, they were able to dart her and relocate her and reintroduce her into a separate lion pride where she was accepted and she finally got to have a family again. So it's entirely possible. It is just completely mind-blowing to think how resilient these animals can be. The other thing that I'm on the lookout, just talking about resilience, is I know that Scott saw a baby zebra yesterday with quite a painful-looking injury along its side. So I've been keeping an eye out here. The zebra seemed to like this area. Jeandré's spotted some kudu, who in turn seem to be not too interested in us. Oh, no, she is looking at us. Off in some quite thick bush. There's a couple of them around, but all right in the middle of this block. You can see how fluffed up that dark color that she's got at the moment. In fact, both of them have. Tells us exactly how chilly they are feeling this morning. Where are you off to, big girl? They appear to have disappeared off into rather thick bush. There's also a herd of impala just a little bit further ahead, so let's move up a bit and see if we can get a nice view of them. All the animals are sort of trying to tuck themselves away in the thick vegetation just to shelter a little bit from the breeze this morning. It is rather chilly. Let us see if we can move forward a bit and see them. Forward a little bit further, see if we can get them in the gap there. Here we go. I can actually only see one lone impala male. Might be feeling a little bit lonely, so he's joined the kudu for company. And both antelope species definitely looking darker than they usually would in the morning chill. Now, John from Scotland and Linda from Wyoming both tell me that although I'm complaining about the cold, this is t-shirt, shorts and t-shirt weather for them. And I do know exactly what you mean. When I lived in the UK, it never failed to astound me how people would say it was warm to them when I was still wearing a sweatshirt and jeans and shivering away in my room. And I remember one particular day when an Irish friend of mine, I think he got heat stroke on a day when I was still wearing 2 warm layers. So there's a very big difference in how you adapt to the climate that you're in. But it's safe to say I won't be wearing a t-shirt, and it seems as though that particular male impala agrees with me. You can see how dark red he's looking. And it really is quite a spectacular colour, which is why in Afrikaans an impala is known as a rooibok, a red buck. You can see that quite clearly here. But he's definitely a happy little antelope because he's busy grazing on all of those new green grass shoots that we've seen coming through, which is so nice to see for all of the animals out here. We've come to a 4-way junction, the Balanites junction, where there's that enormous Balanites tree that James climbed once before. And now I have to make a decision as to which way we go. Just thinking about whether we want to go to Impala Plains and have a look around there, and I've often had lots of luck in that particular area, or whether we want to go down and check Gowrie, Maine. And I'm thinking our best solution might be to head across to Impala Plains, maybe even see if we can have a look at those Senegal lapwings. So the birds that have been settled there for the last few weeks, actually very unusual to see here, although we've got to see them quite a few times on drives. And what I'm really keen to see is if they start nesting and start laying an egg in the next few weeks, because it is breeding season for them, and they've obviously decided that Impala Plains is the place to be. And I think that's the direction we're going to head in. Since there aren't any tracks on the road to give us a hint as to where to go. As though the kudu and the impala agree with me. And I'm going to stop again just because it is slightly more open here. Hello, big girl. Are you going to come across to us? She's nice and relaxed. She's actually fairly close to the vehicle. Probably one of the more relaxed kudu I've seen. Such beautiful, graceful antelopes. Nibbling away on what looks like new flowers as well. And there you can see, using those incredibly flexible lips just to nibble at the new flower growth that's coming through. It looks to me like a bush willow. Now, as we continue on our mission to see what we can find on Arethusa, see if we can pick up any tracks or any evidence of what happened both with Junior last night as well as young Madiba, two of our favorite young boys. I'm sure that Brent has plenty to share with you. We definitely heard a male leopard last night when we were sitting outside Inga's, and I'm sure he's going to be heading across in that direction to follow up. So for now, I'm going to say goodbye, and I will catch up with you very shortly, just a little bit later. I copy you, do you copy me? Now, apparently, since we have been having some radio comm issues, we are still with us and our kudu, but I have just heard some really exciting news. So Scott went out this morning to go out tracking, and he's picked up tracks of Junior as well as the Nkuhuma sub-adult lioness. And strangely enough, they are coming southwest down Impala Plains Road. So right towards where we're heading just now. So let's go see what we can find in that area. I just want to get hold of Scott on the Game Drive channel as well as Brent, because I know that he was going to check around Gowrie Gate. Our plan this morning was to tag team and see if we could pick up on the lions from either side. Just checking really carefully for tracks. Waiting for an opportunity to chat on the Game Drive channel. It sounds as though Brent heard reports of other lions as well outside the Gallagher waterhole. Know that the Nkuhuma pride have been settled around Buffelshoek for the last few days, and it could well be that Junior and that young lioness are trying to make their way back to the rest of the pride. And you could only imagine how stressful and scary it must be to suddenly be on your own out in the wild after all of that chaos with the Birmingham boys over the last few weeks. I just want to hop onto the Game Drive channel now that there's a moment and speak to both Brent and Scott. Brent, Jamie. Good morning. If I would like you to head back in that direction. They can't get hold of you on radio comms. I'll head across to where Scott said he saw those tracks. Okay, one more time. Just forgive me for one moment as we try and get hold of Scott. Scott. Okay, copy that. I'll head in that direction. It sounds as though they might have headed across to Buffelshoek, but I'll come and have a look. That's the birds I was talking about. I'm just going to find us a nice position so we can have a look at them. I chatted a little bit earlier about the Senegal lapwings. Still moving around this area. They've obviously decided that this is a good place to be. And it's very interesting to see how different their behavioral approach is to one of their closest relatives, which is the crowned lapwing. Now, if this was a crowned lapwing wandering around, it would already have been shouting at us and screeching and letting us know to move away from their nest site. But these particular birds are much, much quieter. And really nice to see them as regularly as we have been. Now, as we're watching these wonderful birds and just trying to guess a little bit as to where they've hidden their eggs, and the approach of the lapwings is quite a strange approach. They tuck it, they don't even really try to hide it in bushes or anything like that. They make a little shallow depression. They don't really even line it with various plant matters. And then they lay very, very speckled, camouflaged eggs and sort of just live in hope that that's going to be a way to protect them, just purely by camouflage alone. And of course that in itself runs the risk of something coming through and stepping on them. But one of the most interesting things about these birds, now, for many of you, you'll be used to the idea that birds need to sit on their eggs to keep them warm. But out here in these open clearings, you've got a very, very different circumstance because the ground gets incredibly hot. You can imagine as the days start to get warmer, we can get temperatures up to 40 degrees, and that will heat up the ground. It becomes almost like a giant oven. And the problem that these birds have is exactly the reverse of having to incubate, is to actually try and keep their eggs cool. So what many of the different species of lapwing will do is they will head across to water and wet their bellies, the feathers on their bellies, and come back and put the water over their eggs, just in the hope that a little bit of air movement and a little bit of evaporation will help to cool the temperatures down. They quite literally have to keep their eggs from cooking. So a truly fascinating adaptation they have to living out here. Lots and lots of birds out and about. I can hear arrow-marked babblers, I can hear a crested barbet, fork-tailed drongos, crested franklins, grey go-away birds. Lots and lots out and about on a rather chilly morning. And while we've been sitting here, just taking the opportunities to observe and to listen to the various bird species, I've just been listening to Scott, and he's suggested to me that we carry on our mission towards Arethusa, and he's going to follow up. There's also one other guide making his way into the area to help them on that side. So Scott suggested to me that we carry on and he will follow up. It does sound as though, which is really good news for the lions involved, that those two have switched around and have started moving north towards Buffelshoek. So really, really exciting news. Now, Jess, you were wondering if that sub-adult Nkuhuma lioness would be actively looking for her pride, and absolutely she would. I think she got lucky in that she bumped into Junior. If it is those two, we still haven't completely confirmed, but she would have bumped into him and immediately latched on for his company. Now, lionesses, unlike the males, are highly, highly social. They need that pride structure, and she probably is desperately trying to reunite with them once again, and will be actively looking, actively softly calling. Obviously, she doesn't want to draw attention to herself and, alert the Birminghams to her presence, because a solo little lioness is under threat from quite a bit. But I'm sure that she's been out looking for her pride and desperately trying to reunite. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that it is those two, and we shall leave Scott to his tracking mission along with Aubrey, who's one of the Vuyatela guides, and we shall continue on to Arethusa. We'll see what we can see. I saw a lion track, but it was just the tire tread. Tracking in this kind of light, it's a little bit tricky, sometimes a little bit deceptive in terms of what you are seeing. A very strong feeling of moisture in the air. It's quite humid, and of course we're all hoping that there will be more rain, because although we had a nice big rain about just over 10 days ago, that's not quite enough to really kick off the rainy season. Ooh, it's just got colder, I swear it's just got colder. Just on the Triple M boundary now. Always a nice place to look for tracks. It's nice and sandy, but it is a very regularly used road, so there's lots of traffic up and down. Now, as we make our way into Arathusa, and before I switch across to their game drive channel and ask for some updates, we've been speaking a lot about the chaos that's been caused to the various lion prides around here, and we've spoken a lot about the Nkuhumas. Of course, it is, if it is that missing sub-adult, it is fantastic news for the Nkuhuma pride. However, the Birmingham boys have not just been causing chaos with the Nkuhuma pride, but also with the Styx pride. And Cheryl, you were wondering if it's true that the last Styx cub has been killed. Now, I'm afraid to say, I honestly don't know. It hasn't been seen in quite a long time. We're still keeping our eyes and ears open, all of the guides around the area, not just the WildEarth team, but everybody around here has been exceptionally concerned about the impact that the Birmingham boys have been having on the two prides. Now, Cheryl, I think that it is quite likely that that cub has died, but I cannot confirm it, so please don't stress too soon. We are keeping our fingers crossed. The mother's done very well, but the fact that she was seen trying to mate with one of the Birmingham boys could be an indication that her cub has died, or quite possibly that she was trying to fool him into thinking that she was in estrus, and thereby protecting her last remaining male cub. Now, for those of you who are joining us for the first time and might not know exactly what it is that we're talking about, there were two lion prides in this area that were, I wouldn't say ruled over, but that were visited regularly by two dominant males, known as the Matimba males. And over the last few weeks, a coalition of 5 young male lions came through and caused a significant amount of chaos. And in typical pride takeover behavior, there is lots of testosterone and a great deal of aggression that goes around. And unfortunately, quite a few lionesses and cubs were killed in this process. Making my way towards Red Dam, partly to see if I could pick up on any tracks coming down to drink, but also because I'm curious to see how much rainfall came down in this area. Last time I saw Red Dam, it was not much more than a mud puddle. Let's go and see what we can see. Now, I know that I mentioned before that Brent was also out and about, and unfortunately, poor Wendy is having some communications problems. So Brent's just rushing back to our technical genius Eugene to see if we can get those sorted and back up and running as fast as possible. And Red Dam is definitely not much more than a mud puddle at the moment. So I haven't picked up on all that many tracks. But there you can see, not much water left. Oh, I can hear a woodpecker somewhere out in the distance. That is fairly pungent. Now, on my way this morning when I was heading out, I picked up a little bit of show and tell for you, and I feel like now would be an appropriate time since we have stopped at a dam. Preston Franklin, shush, I'm talking. Okay, we'll let the birds have their moment. Okay, they're done now. So I picked up a skull this morning. So there we have it. It's been sitting next to me, and honestly, half of the reason that I did want to chat about this now is that it's been sitting next to me on the seat, and it's quite fresh, which makes it quite pungent. I thought perhaps it might be nice to just get this done so we can dispose of it. I'm not sure how Jeandré feels, but I'm sure he agrees. The smell is sort of wafting over us in delicate waves. And what we definitely have, or what I think we have here, and feel free to disagree with me because I don't know for certain, my suspicion, just due to the width, is that it is a baby buffalo. That baby buffalo that was killed by the Nkuhumas a couple of weeks ago. And you can see how fresh it is because there's all of these insects, and looks like the larval stages, or at least the cocoon stages, of a couple of different things. I've been looking around for any maggots, but there don't seem to be. But we can see right into the nasal cavity, and all of these little folds here. So all of these, that's all part of the sinus membrane. Those extra folds just helping to analyze the sounds, not the sounds. They don't hear through their noses, to analyze the various scents that they're getting through. And then if we look at those huge orbital cavities, complete with the empty chrysalis of some kind of caterpillar. I'm not entirely sure what those are, but they are fascinating. I thought maybe it might be bone moth larvae, but typically those are right in the depths of horns, and they're more keratin-based, so horn moths. But you can still see there's one or two. Oh no, he's disappeared now. There was one still crawling around. The rest of these are empty. The ones that you can see at the moment are just sort of empty casings. Very curious to know what these are. I'm definitely going to be looking that up when I get back. Now, the reason that I'm thinking it's a buffalo, couple of things that we can use to help identify. First of all, if we start at the basics, it's got herbivore teeth. Quite an easy one. Ruminant teeth. Tilt it backwards just a little bit so we can see. Clearly the nice molar for ruminating and for chewing and for crunching. And then after that, we've got the sideways facing eyes. Clearly a evidence of an animal that's used to being pursued and used to having to have quite a wide field of vision to catch anything trying to sneak up on it. And then I thought buffalo, just because if we look at the width versus the length, yes, definitely a herbivore, and part of its nose has been chewed off, but the skull would probably have stopped round about here. So I'm just looking at the incredible breadth of this base of the skull. which suggests to me that it was the young buffalo. It is a very, very young buffalo. The horns were only just starting to develop and have been crunched off by hyenas. And it was almost certainly hyenas that did the sort of final jagged bits of chewing. Imagine how incredibly powerful those teeth must be to get in there. And one last look, just you can see the horns where they were growing. And that also tells us a lot about the way that animals' horns grow. From the base point, you can see how included it is within the skull itself. So a very, very crucial part of the skeleton. It is a young buffalo, just the width, it's only about that wide. So that buffalo was probably somewhere in the region of, I don't know, maybe about 8 or 9 months old, just starting to get its little horns. And the last thing I want to check for in our forensic examination of a not as dead as I would have liked buffalo, it's very smelly. I just want to have a look here underneath the skull. Now, many of our regular viewers will have heard us talking quite a bit about the organ of Jacobson. Now, when the animals do that famous expression that they do, that phlegm and grimace, the organ of Jacobson sits up here in the palate, and there you can see these openings here. This is where the nerve cells go up into the sinuses and then up towards the brain. And it is a specialized organ that processes scents to almost create a sensation like they are tasting the smells. So that is where the organ of Jacobson sits if you ever see a skull. Now, that was just a little bit of a forensic examination on a skull that we picked up just by chance on the side of the road. Now, I would very much like to wash my hands and dispose of said skull and place it somewhere off in the bush to be consumed by all of the various things out here that will help in its final stages of decomposition. And in the meantime, we have some exciting news. Wendy is back up and running, and I'm sure Brent has plenty to tell you. So we're going to cross across to him and catch up with you a little bit later.
Good morning, finally, and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. My name is Brent Smith. I'm going to be one of your guides for the next few hours. I've got Bryan on camera and the thumb, and sometimes, including the thumb, we're known as the killer bees. So, at the moment, we've had a bit of a struggle in the morning. We are trying out a new radio system that will hopefully make our comms far better in the future. So we're going to keep doing that. And fortunately, I know Scotty and Jeandré out on tracking team. They've been following up on that those tracks of the Nkaluma Pride, and we've decided to head to a different area of the reserve. And lo and behold, we found some male leopard tracks. And just as we got going, after visiting Eugenius to fix our radio comms, I'm just going to pull off to the side a little bit more. They are quite difficult to see in this light, but you can see a nice clear one. Not making it easy for us in this light. I'm trying to see one that you might be able to pick up. I can't even see them at the moment. Let me change the angle. And last track there. So as you can see, we're looking at sort of scrapes in the ground. And can you believe that that there is a leopard track? And it is heading down towards Philemon's Tip. So if I do find some clearer tracks, I will try to show you. Just trying to think. Is this too close here, Bryan? My toes? Yeah, just too close. Just too close. Okay. Let me just move the vehicle quickly. just get it there, and I'll just show you with my finger. So zoom in there, Brian. Just have a look. There we go. There's the male leopard track. Heading south. I wonder who it could be. It looks like an adult male. Just going to update the tracking team quickly in case it sounds like those lion tracks have headed out of our traverse area. So we're going to let them know and see if they can come give us a hand with these leopard tracks. Nkonzo of 1 in Ingwe heading south on Philemon's cut line towards Philemon's dip. I'm going to be following up. So it's a bit of a drab morning. As I said, quite often we have these dull and grey mornings, but they're definitely not dull or dreary, just grey. So tracks are heading down on the left hand side, so we're going to keep on them. And I did hear just before I went to bed last night a leopard sawing, so I think this is possibly the same animal, and some impala alarming. Still keeping in the left hand track. Dark, windy night like last night. What we are hoping to find is these tracks lead us to a drag mark, and a tree climbing impala would be quite nice. So guys, we are on a live African safari. We're tracking a male leopard who has decided to depart from the road at that very moment. So, no, he's back. There he is. And we're going to try to see if we can find you this leopard. So in real time, we're following one of Africa's big cats. And one of the most incredible things about being on these live safaris is we are able to take your questions at home. So you can do that by emailing us on questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag SafariLive if you're on Twitter. So track's still heading down the road. Side for the moment. I'm going to make double sure that he's crossed through here. I'm not seeing any tracks, but it is quite hard here. So we're going to go up and check up on the top through this drainage line, and if the tracks don't come up there, then we will go back and have a look behind us. Very careful look around here. And check a little bit up the road here. If not, we'll check down that road. Nice soft sand up ahead. So no tracks heading up here. They've possibly gone further south. And Safari Hazers are guessing that this could be Tingana, a male leopard. I think that's a very good guess for us, but I'm going to stay mum until we find it, because hopefully it's a new leopard. But I think Tingana is a very, very good call. rain, the ground's been compacted quite a bit, which makes seeing of the tracks quite a lot more difficult. And this light is not helping us either. It's possible that this leopard could have moved into the drainage line opposite us here from the road there and could have been hunting, but we're going to keep checking down this road. We'll check around the block, see if any tracks come out. If they don't, then we'll head back to where those last tracks were and then maybe take a walk and check inside this drainage line. For leopards, not only are we looking for the tracks, we're also listening for alarm calls. We're also checking the trees in case they manage to catch something and put it up in the tree. Unfortunately, yesterday morning, I think my predictions have come true. That cold, windy weather I thought was the precursor to a cold front, and it has turned to be exactly that. You can hear the francolins calling either side of us as we drove through there. Always safe to double check. Saw something that looked a little bit different color in the grass on the other side of the drainage line. Well, and we just go forward a little bit. I have spotted a leopard, but not the leopard you're thinking. If we go up, there we go, Bryan, and zoom in on that marula tree to the right slightly. Let's zoom to the right. Keep zooming. And you see that little green patch up in the tree there in the distance. That is the color I saw in the tree. And obviously in this grey weather from a distance, it doesn't quite look as green as it does there on the screen. And that's a leopard orchid growing up in the tree. And they're a very, very interesting orchid. The only true tree orchid we get in this area. And anyone out there actually tell me why the trees don't mind having leopard orchids in them, and how a leopard orchid gets its nutrients and water? Are they a parasite? Do they take it from the tree that they are, the host tree that they are in, or something else? And you can send your answers through to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter. Been watching for quite a while, we'll see that we find leopard tracks often on the road, and Gary is wondering why wouldn't they walk in the bush where it's more difficult for them to be seen and remain camouflaged? Okay, most of these roads will be built around where there were old big game paths that they would have used naturally, and leopards and lions both like to use the road, especially they don't like being wet, and so there's quite a lot of dew around in the grass, as well as the fact that grass and seeds and stuff will be hitting in their face. So they very often use roads or big elephant paths as ways to move quickly between areas. So when they're not hunting, especially, they will, scent marking or patrolling, they will use roads. Just gonna have a quick look down here, make sure we haven't missed the tracks. haven't had fresh set of leopard tracks on Juma for a while, so always great. And hopefully we can find this guy before the end of the safari. I've actually walked into Tingana tracking very close to here before, and in Mvula in months past. So they do like this little drainage line here. And there's a little two-track on the other side of it, which is nicknamed Ingwe Alley. For those of you not sure, Ingwe is the Shangaan name for a leopard. And obviously Ingwe Alley, we've had quite a lot of great leopard sightings in that area. And Scott actually nicknamed it Ingwe Alley. Possible that that leopard left the road there. There's a prominent elephant path that goes closer to the drainage line, and it comes out just on the other side of that quarry bush there. So we're going to definitely check very carefully around there. Always good to just stop and listen for a few seconds every now and then, see if that animal's possibly been spotted by other animals or birds or squirrels. So we can hear quite a lot of different birds. A fork-tailed dronga making quite a lot of noise, crested francolin, some smaller testiculars, and a southern black tit somewhere as well, and a green-backed Cameroptera, and a Cape turtle dove. Okay, we're going to move along. Oh, little blue wax balls, you just hear that tiny flying past us. These new radio systems, unfortunately, we are from time experiencing a little bit of communication difficulty, and here that I think Robin and Georgiana have sent through an answer, but I can't get the answer completely, so I'm just going to tell you, and that was to the question about that leopard orchid. How does it get its nutrients? A leopard orchid is what you call an epiphyte, so it actually just uses those trees as a host. That's why quite often you'll find them in dead trees where there's no nutrients, and they take all their nutrients from the air around them and the moisture. So they are completely harmless to the host tree species, unlike a plant like mistletoe, which actually embeds its roots into the tree and takes its nutrients from the tree. No tracks coming out so far. there's another major road junction here, so it's possible that leopard has walked through this thick area around the drainage line and popped out again on here, and he's going to hopefully not move too far south. I just want to check the soft sand around here. We are busy trying to track a male leopard, and Blaine, who is a new viewer, welcome Blaine, and while we try to look for these tracks, I'm just going to explain something for Blaine. Blaine would like to know, how do leopards move, in groups or by themselves? Well Blaine, for the majority of the time, leopards are solitary cats, and the time you find them in groups, it's generally female with youngsters, or male and female mating, and they will move sort of solitary, quite quietly through the block. I think this is a dominant male based on the size of the tracks and the fact that just before I went to bed last night, I could hear a male leopard calling very close to our camp, so I'm pretty sure this is the same guy. We found these tracks just outside our back door almost, and he's been moving. When he's moving in territorial calling, he'll walk quite openly and he'll give that wonderful rasping cough, they call it, but it's actually a type of roar, and that is to notify all other male leopards that this is his territory and they should not come, otherwise they should find a challenge, a fight. And the other way they mark their territory is by scent marks. And I'm hoping he hasn't come out of this block. Unfortunately, after that rain we've had, the road is much harder, so it's quite a lot more difficult to track. But I can't find any tracks coming out, so we're going to slowly make our way down that little two-track. For those of you wondering what a two-track is, so this is what we would call a main road out here in the bush. A two-track is sort of a little track that we've had quite a few sightings on, that we use quite regularly. And this particular one was named by Scott, and it's called Ingwe Alley, and we're going to go see if we can find that leopard off there. If we get nothing there, then I'm going to go back to the last visible track, and I'll jump out and try to figure a direction, a proper direction, and maybe even take a quick walk into the bush. Aha! I have found him. He thought he was smarter than me, but he's not. So he's come down this drainage line and he's coming back through. So there were no tracks there, which probably means he's moved down through here into the other drainage line. So I'm just going to find a spot to turn around quickly. Update the tracking team, see where they are. So we use the radios quite a lot, and it's us chatting between the other game drives and between ourselves, and all between our tracking team, which is Scott and James this morning. So they will come give us a hand. They're obviously able to spend a lot more time tracking. They're able to get off the car and walk for much longer than we are, because we are live for some of the safari, and so always great to have them out giving us a hand. Scott. What's your position? Trucks came down in the alley, they've come out onto Twin Dams, but then headed further east towards the Moati. I'm going to check Twin Dams down to Spaghetti Junction, then check Vulture's Nest, Nyala Road South, that area. But if you guys would like to give me a hand, it would be much appreciated. to check a little bit further to the east in case this animal has moved quite far during the night. Sorry, Blaine, I didn't get to the rest of your questions. How far can a leopard move in the night? It completely depends. They can move up to 15-20 kilometers if they need to. They don't normally move more than about 4 or 5. On the heels of this leopard and tracking, which is one of my favorite things to do in the whole world. Miss Jin, hello Miss Jin, welcome. Miss Jin is a regular of ours and she's from Dallas in Texas, the Lone Star State. Miss Jin would like to know which animal is the most difficult to track. Well, leopards are generally one of the most difficult to track, and that's because they're a solitary animal and they tend to meander quite a bit in and out of drainage lines. But for me, probably the hardest animal to track is the African wild dog, and it is also my favorite animal, and that's purely because they are so hyperactive. They move such vast distances and at such high speed, and that makes them probably the most difficult to track. And out of all the big cats, lions are probably the easiest, and that's just because they're in prides and their feet are that much bigger than everyone else's. So what we're going to do is we're crossing the Moati drainage line now. A lot of tracking is to do with educated guessing. So especially now since we can't get out and walk too far, those tracks I think have come into this area. So, well, Bryan might have spotted him. What did you spot, Bryan? In the tree? Yeah, have you spotted a leopard, Bryan?
Maybe.
Oh, we're about
things are going mad.
Bryan thinks he might have spotted, I can't see what he's talking about. He thinks he might have spotted a leopard's tail hanging down from a tree. I see an inyala on the ground, of course not in the tree.
Oh, it's monkey.
It's monkey. A little vervet monkey. Now, a vervet monkey is a really great alarm system for us. They have got incredibly good eyesight, and they will spot a leopard sometimes from a couple of 100 meters away. So the fact that these monkeys are so relaxed in this jackalberry, it means that the leopard's probably passed through here or hasn't got here yet. So we're going to go check up to the next road junction, and those little vervets are feeding off the African ebony fruit that is coming out at the moment. Off that top right there, Bryan, there's a little one who is playing quite nicely. And here we go. It's amazing how agile these little guys are, and their eyesight is incredible. And they're one of our more important sort of alarm systems out here in the bush, and they're able to spot lots of predators from a distance, and then they'll shout and tell everyone. They go, and if you can speak monkey, they're either saying leopard, 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 lion, 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 or even sometimes martial eagle, get down, get down. This little one looks like he's full of the joy of morning, pouncing all over the tree. So having them in the area is quite a good thing, so we will be stopping to listen to see if they start alarm calling. But we'll leave them to their breakfast of African ebony fruit and carry on to see if we can find any more tracks of this leopard. Good spot though, Bryan.
Yeah, not quite a leopard, but...
No. So the eagle eyes are in. Now he's just got to find us a leopard. the leopards use quite a few times. They come through and they take this shortcut across Vulture's Nest onto Inyala Road South and then down into this drainage line. So we're just going to check one of their favorite sort of crossing points. There's a big elephant path here that they use quite regularly. What we're doing is process of elimination. If we don't find any tracks here, then we'll move to Vulture's Nest, which is the next closest road. Pays to double check those leopard-like stumps. Every now and then they turn into actual leopards. No tracks coming out yet. We are going to continue on this road, slowly work our way back to Central, and then we'll go around and back towards Vulture's Nest. If nothing there, then again we'll head back to that last visible track in the road and then try work out what's been going on from that exact position. Just buffalo tracks on the road. Having a look at one of our alarm systems out here in the bush, the vervet monkey. And vervet monkeys, being primates, are very interesting, and they have a very varied diet. And John is asking, he said he's just seen a video of a vervet eating a squirrel. Have I ever personally seen that? John, I haven't, but I have seen them eating birds and birds' eggs, and they are opportunists and omnivores, so it doesn't surprise me if they found a baby squirrel nest that they would take advantage of that protein resource. And I've seen them raid birds' eggs before, and I've seen them eat baby birds that are still in the nest. So a squirrel, for me, it's probably very much the same if they manage to catch one. Sorry about that, guys. We just seem to have a little bit of a signal break up there, and I've just spotted definitely two of the strangest primates. Two of the stranger primates. It's Scott out there driving past us. So he's looking for leopard tracks as well, and it doesn't look like they've come out there. I'm just going to give an update on the radio. Chat to Scotty on the radio quickly. Scott. Scott. We've got last tracks were in the drainage line on Twin Downs, just to the south of Ingwe Alley Junction. Tracks look to head sort of more east towards the Moati. I've checked the crossing at Vulture's Nest Moati. There's nothing there, and there's vervets there. So I'm going to check Vulture's Nest. If nothing, I'll head back to last tracks. Scotty's in the area. He's going to give us a hand, and hopefully between the two of us we are going to be able to find that male leopard. So the reason I checked Inyala Road South first before this, which is the close road, is obviously to eliminate that as a possibility that the leopards crossed there. The second reason is Inyala Road South is on much more sandy soils, so it makes it much easier to see tracks, whereas as you can see from this road it's on more clay soils, so far more difficult to see the tracks. The sand is really compacted, so we are there is a possibility we might miss tracks on this road, but hopefully something will let us know. One of the alarm systems out here, a squirrel or Inyala or impala or even those monkeys sitting in that jackalberry tree. Almost a complete silence out here at the moment. we're going to carry on with us for a little bit. We're going to go just down here, and then I think we're probably going to have to get out and use Shank's pony to find this leopard. So we'll stay with us for a little bit as we move down the road, and then in a few minutes or so we're going to cross back to Jamie so she can give you an update on her meanderings this morrow. Always checking the nice trees, see if they possibly haven't made a kill and hoisted it into the big trees, and unfortunately nothing yet. Oh, there's an African hawk eagle. I wonder where the other one is. Where there's one, there's normally another very close by. And their nest isn't too far from where we are at the moment. And a few evenings ago, James and I drove past the nest, and there was a female sitting, so we definitely will keep a close eye on that nest. I think they're possibly my favorite eagle that we get in this area. There he goes. You can hear that loud calls from the go-away birds already. So we might be confused and think, oh, maybe those go-away birds have spotted a leopard, but they're definitely alarming at that African hawk eagle that's just taken off. So we're going to continue on a little bit, and while we do that, I think it's time to go check up with Jamie, see what she's been up to, and hopefully when we come back we'll have more of an update for you about where this leopard possibly has gone.
Welcome back, and what an amazing sighting that was with those African hawk eagles. Just a few minutes ago, Jeandré and myself had two beautiful Warburg's eagles on a dead tree. Unfortunately, we were right in the middle of a drainage line, so our signal wasn't too great. We couldn't really get across to show them to you, and they didn't stick around for too long. They're obviously still settling into the idea of vehicles coming past them. But what was awesome about it was that there was one really dark colored one and one pale Warburg's eagle, which sat together in quite a stark contrast. And while you've been with Brent, Jeandré and I have been patrolling the northern boundary of Arethusa. The last update from Scott suggested that the tracks from Junior and that young Inkuhuma sub-adult lioness had moved west across from Vuatela along Power Lines Road, which is just to the north of our boundary and into Simbambili. And I scoured with great intent the entire northern boundary of Arethusa. Didn't pick up on any tracks coming through, so it doesn't seem like they've moved down south just yet. But we're still going to be keeping our eyes and ears peeled. Now the clouds and the wind are playing havoc with our radio comms with the other Arethusa guides. But I think I caught an update about Mediba's tracks being around Vuatela, around Gowrie Main Triple M boundary. So that is where I'm on my way at the moment. I also think I caught an update about Shadow being on Hoffman's, which is the area just to the south of our boundary. I'm heading in that direction now to see what we can see. It's going to be interesting to see exactly where that male leopard moves through, because of course Brent is currently on his tracks in it, or was on his tracks in a drainage line. And if young Madiba is there, we've got to keep our fingers crossed that it is Tingana, because we know that Tingana is far more tolerant of his presence than, say, the Anderson male might be. I also swear that since I last saw you, it has probably dropped about 10 degrees. It really is very, very chilly this morning. All of the animals seem to agree as well. Now, Angie in Portland, welcome to the Sunrise Safari as we continue our journey down to where I think I heard that update about Madiba's tracks. You've noticed that there's lots of dung on the road, and you were wondering if we can identify the various animals by their dung. And yes, absolutely we can, and I will give some demonstrations as we go along to where those tracks might have been seen. Just on coming up to Zebra Drive at the moment, so I think I'm going to hook a left here, and we can chat about the dung balls as we go along. Oh, first example, it's been driven over quite a bit. But Angie, first set of dung that we've seen since your question came through. Now that is buffalo dung. At first I got quite excited. I thought maybe we had some hippopotamus dung because it's so scattered, but it's just buffalo. It's just a buffalo pat that we can see. I'm going to hop out and show you a little bit more about how I know that. Let's hop out and just see. I'll show you exactly how it is that we identify the different sets of dung. I'm just looking around to see if I've got a nice comparison. Oh, I think I do over there. Bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to dash off here. That's interesting as well. Don't really want to touch that. Let's start with this one. There we go. So when we're driving and when we're looking, you get to be a little bit practiced about what it is that you're looking for. And obviously the different animals have different diets. So in this particular case, a very rough ball of dung. You can see there's lots and lots of grass in here and lots of leaves. And although this is an old piece of dung, it does have a slightly orange tinge to it. And that is what you sort of look for if you're trying to do something quickly. You don't have time to stop and look at each and every dung pile. You start to look towards the color. And this is elephant dung, and the reason we know that is it's got both grass and leaves in it. So a mixed diet and very, very roughly digested. It's not very well ground up. And elephant dung, when you see it on the road, especially fresh elephant dung, tends to take on quite an orange tinge that you can catch out of the corner of your eye and immediately discount all the other types of large animals that might make this kind of dung ball. So we're done with that, and the reason that elephant dung does turn that orange color is from the tannins within the within the branches that they eat, within the trees. So that's what's used in those sort of tanning processes in various industries. This buffalo dung, on the other hand, you can see it's quite a dark color, almost black, and when it comes out fresh, it's a sort of a dark green. And it does look very much like a cow pat, although that one in particular most of it had been driven over. And the other thing about it is that it's very finely digested. So if I break it open here, there you can see, along with the bits of dung that have now fallen down my sleeve, we've got the very, very finely ground up dung there. And that's what we start looking for. Those are the basics. You're looking at the shape of it and the color of it. And the more you get to watch what you are driving past, the more you will start to see the differences, and you can pick them up and make your decision about what animal it is very, very quickly. And if I see any of the other big types of dung that we do see, I'll stop and show you. Just sweep the dung away from my earpiece connector. Seem to have managed to get that everywhere this morning. Now, I'm not sure if I was speaking too loudly for you to hear that, but I could also hear a dark chanting goshawk. Ah, that's what I was looking for. Another vehicle. Since I have been struggling with our radio comms, it would be nice to just have a quick update from that side. Although he immediately, as soon as he saw me, reversed away. I'm assuming that's nothing personal. Oh, he's calling me. There we go. That's good news. Let's find out what news we have. Just bear with me for one moment as we have this quick chat and conversation. Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you? Hi, guys.
Just the safari axis. Shadow, she's heading west on Triple M South.
Oh, awesome.
Just the safari axis, speak to Sabi.
Safari access. Okay, I'll get a try. My radio is not like it today.
I'll speak to him, just go up towards them.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, man. Cheers, guys. Okay, so some exciting news and an exciting update. We better head there quickly because she's right on our boundary. But the guides have told me that Shadow is on the boundary on Triple M, close to Safari access. And he's offered very kindly, because my radio is kind of a bit shaky, to call my presence in and alert them to the fact that I'm on my way. So very grateful to him. The wonderful guides at Arathusa and all around this area, all working together to help everybody out. And judging by the looks on his guests' faces, they've had a very happy morning, lots of big smiles. Now let's see what we can find. I'm going to try and call myself in. If any station copies me, I'm making my way towards the sighting with Shadow. Okay, copy that, thanks. Any sign of Bantuan? Okay, copy that, perfect, thank you. Now, it sounds as though, unfortunately, we might have just missed her. So, the property to my right is Arathusa. The property on my left is Hoffman's. And it seems as though she's cut across there. However, Bryan's just told me that Madiba's tracks do cross into Voyatella, so we'll be heading in that direction next. I just want to double check that she hasn't popped out here somewhere. I do see another vehicle up ahead, which makes me think maybe we might get lucky here. Let's see if we can get there in time. make our way in, Kathleen from Michigan was wondering if I carry hand sanitizer for all the times I'm busy playing in dung or touching skulls, etc. And I probably should. I do have some somewhere in my first aid kit in my bag. Sorry about that, Kathleen. You were wondering about my sanitary condition of my hands. And the answer is I probably should, but I generally don't. In terms of herbivore dung, which is the only one that I will touch, it can be very, very safe. It doesn't carry much in the way of parasite loads. But I definitely make sure that I never touch anything along the lines of predator scat. Now, unfortunately, I've come to our boundary, and it seems as though we might have missed out on Shadow. She's just come into Hoffman's. But now I wonder if she's on her way towards her young cub. And I think we still have a very, very good chance of following up there. So Ryan tells me that Madiba's tracks cross north across Gowrie Main, which is the boundary with Hoffman's and Juma, and they've come into our property. So let's go and have a look there. I don't see any evidence of her on this road, but it could well be. And what she very often does, I've noticed a lot with her tracks, is she'll walk down Triple M for a while and then cut the corner through Hoffman's and then pop out on Gowrie Main and into the block around Philemon's Cutline and Rebecca's. It's interesting because Jeandré, I'm sure he said she was going west on Safari Road, or did he say east? I'm sure he said west. West is that way. West would be good. Just going to do one more double check on this side of things. Don't see anything here. Lots of vehicle tracks. Let's do one quick loop in here and then go and have a look for young Madiba. What is truly amazing to me is how often these two seem to follow a very, very similar path, and they tend to be seen in very similar areas. Now, for young Madiba, that makes absolute sense. He's still young, he's not brave enough or silly enough to go wandering off too far from where Mum has left him. And it is nice to get to know them as personalities and to start to see how they follow very similar behavioral patterns. Completely impossible to predict all the time, of course, but still a useful way of starting to learn a bit about their habits, and it really, really helps when you're tracking them. However, in this case, I don't see any vehicles, I don't see any shadow tracks. I think we might have missed her crossing into Hoffman's. I'm going to do a quick U-turn and we're going to go and find out where young Madiba has crossed into Juma. And I'm starting, if my predictions about his habits are what they are, I've got a couple of termite mounds already picked out in my head as to where he might have gone. Through, and I've talked a little bit about the movements of Shadow and her cub Madiba. Ian, welcome to the Sunrise Safari. Now, you've asked quite a complex question about leopard territories and how it all works, how it works with males and females. And what I'd love to do is stop and draw you a picture, but I just want to get to where the tracks of the Debo were last seen. But in the meantime, I'll try and explain it to you in the simplest possible terms. Think of leopard. So there's a difference between a territory and a home range. A home range is the entire area that an animal will utilize. A territory is the part of it that is actively defended by that animal. Now, in the case of leopards, both the males and the females are territorial, but they're only territorial towards individuals of the same sex. So females will be territorial to other females and males to other males. And it's particularly obvious in the case of the dominant males who are marking and controlling out their territories. And you also need to be sure that it's not, territories are not, and I described it the other day like this, they're not like pieces of a puzzle. So they don't fit together exactly and tessellate precisely. Their borders are fluid. And when one leopard might move into one area that overlaps another's territory, that leopard might move over a little bit, and they might move around like that. So you cannot think of it in the way that we have neighboring properties where you've got an exact fence that demarcates the space between you and your neighbor. Now, typically in terms of size of leopard territories, there's a huge variation depending on the habitat as well as how much prey there is. So the better the habitat, the more suitable it is for leopards. The smaller their territories are going to be because the more competition there is. But in areas like this, they can be much, much larger. Now, if we think about, say, Tingana's territory, now he's one of the big dominant males in this area, his territory probably stretches all the way from around Cheetah Cut Line, which is our eastern boundary, and apparently all the way up to close to Arathusa Lodge, and maybe even further towards the western boundary of Arathusa. So that's a territory that's probably about 5 kilometers from one side to another, and then all the way probably another 5 kilometers long. But then again, as I said, it's fluid. So if the Anderson male, if Tingana's all the way in the east, the Anderson male, who is his main competitor, will move into the territory on the west. Just stopping for some rather tall mammals this morning. Nice to see. Good morning, giraffe. And just while we take a moment to have a look at these ladies, I want to hop on the Game Drive channel and get hold of Scott. This is Scott for Jamie. Scott, just got an update from the Arathusa guides that Madiba's tracks come across Gowrie Main, come north towards Philemon's Cut Line. I'm heading across that area to follow up. I'm not sure what your position is. Okay, copy. I'm going to follow up as well. Just let me know if you're moving into the area. Copy. Thank you. Just calling in a little bit of backup. Scott is on his way. Let's see if we can shift around and get a better look at these three, what looks to be 3 female giraffe. Oh, they are moving into a very thick part of the drainage line. Unfortunately, we might be losing them, but let's try. Let's see if we can get another good look at them. I really, really enjoy looking at giraffe. They are such different animals and always so peaceful looking. Now, Ian, don't worry, I haven't forgotten your question about leopard territories, and I haven't finished explaining. It's just really nice to see some giraffe. We don't actually always get to see them. Although I think our three have decided they're feeling a little bit camera shy this morning. They don't really want to be on television. No, they've definitely disappeared off, and we can just show you how incredibly thick it is in here. Amazing how an animal that weighs probably close to a ton or more in the case of these females, no, probably a bit less for the females, how easily an animal like that, 3 or so meters tall, can disappear off no more than maybe 50 meters away from us. You can see just how thick it is in there. Our giraffe have disappeared, and we're discussing the fascinating dynamics of leopard territories. So while we're doing that, let's go and see if we can find a leopard of our own. I'm always hopeful about chances of finding young Madiba. He has been such an obliging leopard in the past. And last time I saw them, I was very, very relieved to hear that they were safe and sound. So I was with them close to the safari airstrip. I know that James was with him yesterday afternoon. But 2 days ago on the sunset safari, I was with young Madiba and Shadow on an impala kill. And I got a call from the Arethusa guides to say that the Styx lionesses, it did turn out to be the Styx, I thought it was the Birminghams, but it was the Styx. The Styx lionesses were on their way straight towards where we were sitting with them. We pulled out of the sighting as quickly as possible just to make sure we didn't disadvantage the leopards in any way. I was still very, very happy to hear that they were safe and sound. Now Ian, just back to a little bit more about leopard territories. We were chatting about the size of them. Typically what will happen with males and females, the male territory will be much, much bigger than the females and will probably encompass the territories of 2 or 3 different females in the area. And he will take that opportunity to mate with them, with all of the females in and around his territory. And the females in turn will mate with as many different males as they can within their surrounding area, just to make sure that they can try and fool each male into thinking that they are the father of her cubs, so that they don't try to kill them. And the biggest threat to any leopard cub, in all cases, and this is official studies that have been done, is another male leopard, a strange male leopard that isn't known to that female. And just to update you on where we are, to the right is Hoffman's, which is where Shadow was, and to the left is Juma, which is where they saw the tracks of Madiba coming in. Just making sure I don't miss exactly where they went into this block here. Left those 3 giraffe who are feeling a little bit shy this morning, as are most of the animals. Most of them have tucked themselves away into the thick drainage lines, just probably in response to the fact that it is quite windy this morning. It makes them feel a little bit unsettled. Now, Jim Butler, you were wondering if giraffe ever alarm call in any way to a threat. And they don't have a specific bark or anything in the same way that a lot of the other antelope species do, but they can snort. But typically, the best indication that giraffe have seen something is they stop and they stare. So a very different approach. I thought I saw a leopard track, but it's just a trick of the light. So instead of alarm calling, a lot of the time giraffe will all stand in a group together and stare very intently at the threat that they've seen. And quite often I've followed staring giraffe and found something like a lion or a leopard. And you just learn to read that body language. There's something in the intensity of their stare and the way that they're looking. They said they were heading towards Philemon's cut line. I just want to double check further along Gowrie Bend. I have seen some older tracks of young Mediba, but nothing too fresh just yet. And I want to check out one of the termite mounds just along here, where we've seen him in the past. Now, many of the regular viewers will know that Mediba of termite mounds, they're a great way of adding a little bit of extra height and allowing him to see that little bit further and keep his eye out for any potential threats. However, it is a cold, windy morning, so it could be that he's tucked away somewhere, trying to shelter from the wind in the drainage line. The other slight problem with tracks on Gowrie Main is that there are lots and lots of wrong. It's always a possibility. Obviously, it's very difficult to put any predictions out there. But my guess is that young Mediba is going to be tucked away in a drainage line, sheltered from the wind and the cold, and hiding away now that his mom has left him and moved into Hoffman's. Now that means that I'm going to need a little bit of time out on foot to go tracking him, which is definitely a thrilling prospect. I love having a look at seeing Mediba on foot. He really is a special leopard. And while I do that, we are going to cut across to Brent and see what he's been up to, and I'll be back with you a little bit later, hopefully with young Mediba to show you.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we are still meandering. Unfortunately, those leopard tracks did not come out, didn't come to fruition, but we are still checking the area. I think maybe they've come a bit further east, so we're going to check Leadwood Road, a road seldom checked, or I haven't checked it in quite a while, so I'm going to go have a look. Around here, it doesn't look like anyone's been driving on here for a while. Stop and listen for a few seconds. Oh, there we go, Bryan. Citrus swallowtail. One of the big butterfly species we get here. Maybe if I move forward a little bit. Oh, roll. We should stop again. Maybe a bit further away, unfortunately. That was a citrus swallowtail. We can get one last view of it. Popped in, there he is on the ground. Got him, Bryan?
Yep.
Oh, Murphy's Law. Took off as we stopped. getting a butterfly on camera can be quite difficult. Where is he, B? Just too close. I can't see from here.
Yeah. Close the lid. Make it right there.
There we go. I don't want to move just yet so you can get a good view of him. So one of the bigger butterfly species we see regularly as the wet season comes. There we go. Not feeding at the moment, probably quite a new hatchling. I'm just going to try. Found him in the book for you. So I'm going to try and move the vehicle. Has he flown yet, Bryan?
No, it's
Just a tiny bit so we can get a proper view of him. Say when? There we go. Citrus swallowtail, also known sometimes as a Christmas butterfly or an orange dog during its larval phase. And they have incredibly big larval phase or instar larval phase, which is their caterpillar phase. And I will show you what they look like before they become this beautiful butterfly. So its name, citrus swallowtail, it is part of the swallow-tailed family. And then if we have a look, there we go, you can see that's them there. Princeps demodocus. So that's the upper side, and then that's if they're coming out. There's a newly emerged one coming out of its pupa. There's what the pupa looks like. And what's really impressive, I think, is the larval stage. You see this caterpillar, and you can even see it's got fake eyes on the back, and that red to sort of pretend it's dangerous, even though it's not. But one of the biggest predators of the larval phase of a lot of butterflies, here we go, that's this one here, and you can see there's pupa attached to the back, and those will be eggs laid by a parasitic wasp. So they'll hatch from there and go straight into the larva of this butterfly and feed off them. So that is one of the biggest predators of the pupa, of the larva, sorry. So they're quite an interesting one, and the reason they get that name citrus swallowtail is that their host plant species are generally quite citrusy, even so wild mangoes and that, and even the cultivated citrus, lemons, oranges, mangoes, that is their preferred host species. So very, very interesting. So really, really nice. First real good butterfly season, sighting of the season. So we're going to carry on, see what else we can find on Leadwood now. Still there? There we go. So Pretty nice to actually get a butterfly. Not something we get on camera too often, so well done, Bryan. I'm probably not the best person to answer this question. Bryan is, but Raja from India, I'm going to try and answer this question, and Bryan can correct me where I'm wrong. Raja would like to know, what is the best way to become a wildlife cameraman? Well, Raja, most of the wildlife cameramen I know never started life as wildlife cameramen. It is sort of something that happens. Literally. Bryan, in Bryan's case, he was a 3D animator. Yep. And then got offered an opportunity with WildEarth to go to the Kalahari to film meerkats with almost zero camera experience. And now here he is sitting on the back filming wildlife every day. So that's Bryan's story, well, the short version of it. The other wildlife cameramen I know, a lot of them started out their lives as safari guides. And you do tend to get to a stage after guiding for many years that the next guest that gets on the back of your vehicle you dislike immensely, even though they might be the nicest person in the world. So you look for another avenue to still stay in the bush and with wildlife, but without having to work in one of those luxury lodges and do all that type of stuff. So I think a lot of them start out as guides. You will find very few formally trained cameramen in the wildlife film industry. There's a lot of reasons for this. Quite often you don't have all the technical support and stuff that you would on a big film crew, and hours can be very long. I mean, I've spent, I think our longest to get a lion kill while filming in Botswana is we spent 3 full days. So 72 hours with the lions, sleeping in the car next to the lions, and eating in the car next to the lions. And while they're sleeping, you sleep. While they move, when they're moving, you move. So long hours, quite often very difficult conditions. So yeah, you don't find too many formally trained cameramen who've worked on sort of Hollywood sets and stuff out here in the bush. I think they find it a little bit too rough. And there's one of those things about being out of the bush. It doesn't matter what position you're in, whether you're a cameraman or a director or whatnot. The plan will change every 30 seconds, and you have to be able to roll with those punches and make a plan to do what you have to do. So I think there's quite a lot of interesting stories when it comes to wildlife cameramen and how they ended up in that spot. I mean, Bryan's even involves a stint running away to the circus, if you can believe it or not. And we have, through the bushes, unfortunately not the best view, female kudu. There's some more behind, but unfortunately not in the best spot to view. That one is ruminating. It's taking food up from its stomach and re-chewing it to get the most nutrients out, and then it'll swallow it again at a later stage. There's a couple in there, but as I said, they're behind the bushes. There's another little one coming through. There we go. You just actually saw her swallow that bolus. Oh no, the next one came up. So she actually swallowed one and brought up another. And you can see that fat in her cheeks there. And that's the vegetable matter she's bringing up from her stomach and re-chewing to get the maximum amount of nutrients out of it. Obviously that's quite important at this time of the year. Although there has been a little bit of rain, there still isn't the most vast amount of food available. There we go. Swallow. And will she bring up another one? There we go. Well, anyway, that's quite nice to watch. That kudu's breakfast might have been chewed up to 3 times already. directly on, and almost this exact position actually was when we were lucky enough to first see that really, really interesting line behavior of the Birminghams making their first insurgence with calling and whatnot, actually chasing and being chased by the Matimba male lions. That happened right here in this area. A bit quieter this morning, but nonetheless, hopefully we do bump into something. So chatting about the Birminghams there, Jess on Twitter was wondering, once they establish territory, do we think they will become less aggressive with the females? Most certainly, Jess. I also think one of the reasons the females are not being so open towards them is that the females probably feel they're a little bit young. So similar thing happened with the Mapoko coalition when they came in. So that's probably why they were being so aggressive and killing the females. The other reason is that their blood's up, their testosterone's up, they're roaring, there's other male lions, they're taking over, it's new, it's exciting. So even the smallest sort of form of aggression can sort of trigger a really bad reaction from those lions. But I think possibly, maybe in a few months, a bit older and not so feeling like they need to chase everything and catch everything and kill everything, they will definitely calm down and then possibly start mating with the brides. We've got quite an interesting plant that is one of the first to bloom after the rain. It's called, in Afrikaans, there's a wonderful name for it. It's called a Baboon staart, which means a baboon's tail, and got quite a few interesting medicinal uses, and I'm just going to get a picture of it out in the book for you. And I'm very excited because I think it's going to be the first of the really, really nice lily-like flowers that's going to come up this year. B-O, there we go. And they do have very, very pretty flowers. $312. There we go. So as you can see, it hasn't quite got to this stage yet. We've got these beautiful lilac flowers that are going to come out of those, and I mean they look, especially during the dry season, really, really ugly. No leaves, just sort of this funny brown thing sticking out of the ground. But we are going to get these wonderful flowers coming from them quite shortly. So the stem and the bark, this section here, is shaved traditionally, and it's used for sort of general aches. Also, it is an anti-inflammatory, but for the most interesting one, it's used to stop hemorrhaging as well. So there's obviously a coagulant in the chemical makeup of this Baboon staart that will stop hemorrhaging, which I find very, very interesting. And there's actually not too many plant species. There's stuff that will help with sort of minor cuts and scars, but nothing really that does the hemorrhaging thing. And if we do have any serious doctors or scientists, which we are not, the one thing that's interesting about this book, it says what the actual chemical compound, which I'm still trying to learn and grasp a little bit more, of these individual plants and their possible use in sort of pharmacology. So very, very interesting. So this has diglycides, and that's what apparently stops the hemorrhaging, as well as, see, I can't even say some of these. So apart from diglycides, I presume two C's. So guys, we're going to cross across to Jamie very quickly. She's got something far more interesting than me waffling on about pharmacology.
Welcome back, guys, and we just wanted to come across here quickly just to have a look at these young males who are sparring with each other. This isn't too serious. It's not the rutting time, so it's not a serious fight. They've just been playing, practice fighting. And these two are probably about somewhere in the region of 3 years old. Their horns are not quite fully developed, but they're honing their skills that they're going to need for next year's mating season. And they've stopped to look behind us, and that is because Scott and James have arrived to help us with our tracking mission for young Maribou. You can actually hear the clash of their horns. You can tell it's not too serious. They keep getting distracted every now and again, stopping to eat. But still very interesting to watch the technique that they adopt when they're fighting each other. Now, it's not uncommon during the really serious mating season towards the end of May and the beginning of June for impalas to even break off their horns when they are clashing with other males in this way. But very, very cool to see. I think the one has decided is no longer interested. In fact, they have both decided that breakfast is a little bit more important. Now, neither of these two rams are particularly large. I'd put them probably at maybe 3 years old, maybe a little bit older. They're getting right to the point where at that sort of 4-year-old margin, they'd be ready to mate, or at least be able to compete for mating opportunities with other males. Probably from this year, they didn't have that chance. They're just that little bit too small. And there's a couple of really large rams out there that could have outcompeted them. But that's not to say they might not have managed a quick, sneaky mating session with a couple of ewes on the outskirts of the herd. So what you'll often find in the rutting season is a group of females being very carefully shepherded and guarded by one large ram. But every now and again, one of them moves off to the side, and there's a couple of young males who will be on the outskirts, and they might just take that quick opportunity to mate and impregnate one of the females. But in the next year or so, they've got a whole year almost to go, a couple of, maybe somewhere in the region of 9 to 10 months, to put some growth in and some preparation and lots of practice fights like the one that we just witnessed. And it will help them to hone their skills and really start to compete properly, probably from sometime next year. Now, just looking back to see where Scott has disappeared off to, we still haven't found exactly where Maribou crossed this main road, so Gowrie Main. It was a report that I got from one of the Arathusa guides. They said to me that the tracks were going towards Philemon's cut line. Now, we are almost right at that junction there, and I'm going to keep heading in that direction, see if maybe they pop out onto the road somewhere there. We do have Shadow's tracks coming out and into Hoffman's, along with some fairly fresh leopard scat, probably from last night. And if you are a new viewer and you're wondering how this whole situation works, essentially what female leopards will do is they will find a nice safe place for their cubs to hide, and the younger the cub, the more sort of deep and tangled and safe the hiding place will be. And they'll hide their babies there, go off and kill something, go off to hunt, and then they'll hide the kill either in a tree or, usually in the case of Shadow, on the ground under a quarry bush. And then they'll go back and they will fetch their cubs and bring them across to a kill. Now, both Shadow and young Maribou have eaten fairly recently. 2 days ago, they consumed an entire impala together. So they won't be too hungry, but you can never afford to be lax if you're a leopard out here. And there's no rest for poor Shadow. She'll be off hunting and searching for prey. what I did do a little bit earlier was I hopped off the vehicle and reverse tracked a little bit. So in other words, I walked backwards along where Shadow's tracks came from. But it is an absolutely enormous block, and if she was busy hunting, it's probably not the fastest way to find my way back to where she left Mediba. And in the meantime, I'd like to hop off and go and check this drainage line in here. It's nice and thick, and we found him hiding in there before, but that requires a little bit of walking. So we're going to send you back across to Brent and catch up with you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. It seems like those impala missed the message that mating season was over. There's no need to lock horns. Possibly just a bit of practice for next year. So we're on the end of Leadwood Road now. Unfortunately, no tracks, no animals apart from those very cold-looking kudu and that very nice but non-mobile baboon's tail or bobbejaan's start. So we're going to head a bit further to the west towards Treehouse Waterhole. So guys, we're about to go through a dip. We might have a bit of signal breakout here, but we'll be back with you on the other side if it does happen. I'm calling. Just trying to see where he's looking, or see where he is. Maybe not so much alarm calling, he just sounds like he's a little bit upset with something. Yeah, sounds like he's upset with another squirrel. Can't see him just yet, I just hear him in this knobthorn. Not a classic squirrel alarm call, more of a sort of grumpy squirrel noise. Just move a little bit, maybe we can spot him. There he is. Hello, grumpy squirrel. Where's the grumpy squirrel? There's the grumpy squirrel. Not sure what it's grumpy about. Maybe he's even grumpy at us coming past. Decided to keep quiet now. Looks quite cold. Maybe he's grumpy about the weather. So, like the European and American squirrels, they will store caches of things like marula nuts, but not nearly to the same degree as the other squirrel species, who will store much bigger larders than these little guys. Coming to have a closer look at us. Oh, he's coming much closer to us. Oh, preening his tail. Itchy tail, probably got a few fleas or lice. Well, for a grumpy squirrel, he's a very, very photogenic squirrel. Maybe he was complaining that we didn't stop to look at him, and now he's come out to pose for us. He's actually coming even closer to us now. So he's no less than about 3-4 feet from us now. It's quite amazing if you just sit still next to these animals how quickly they relax around you. He's now eyeing out Bryan. Coming right up to the vehicle. He's still sitting there. Tail's fluffed up, the body's fluffed up. Are you going to come down again, mister? Or are you just going to keep sitting there? And we are now blocking the road. But I think it's worth blocking the road for this little guy. Yep. And heading off, looks like he's going to try to cross the road behind us. Why did the squirrel cross the road? Bryan, any ideas?
The size is obvious.
Oh. Off he goes. Morning, morning. How you doing? Any updates from your side?
Ja, was net die leopard. Verder is dit, ek het nie geweet julle so mal werk aan een korinkie.
Well, so guys, just so you know, we look at everything. Butterflies, squirrels, plants, trees, flowers. Well, enjoy your drive, guys. Cheers. Sorry about that, guys. Just the morning meeting with one of the other game drive vehicles. And we're on our way yet again. And for those of you who don't understand Afrikaans, what the guide said to me, he says, I didn't know you guys were so crazy about eekhoorntjies. Any of you from Holland or the Netherlands might have understood that. Didn't know you guys were so crazy about squirrels. Obviously we're crazy about everything out here, and that's one of the reasons we do what we do and we live out here in this incredible part of the world. Unusual that we get good sightings of butterflies on these grey, dreary days. It could be because it's still a bit cold and the butterfly is still waiting for its wings to dry before it's moving off. And Jojo from New York says, thanks very much for the first butterfly. It's my pleasure, Jojo. I aim to show you a lot more as we head further into the summer. And Annie is wondering, could we not visit the hyena den? Annie, the hyena den has been visited already and there's no one at home. So possibly we'll try and on the sunset. For a second, but I heard something. And there's one lone impala male. I just thought he might be looking at something, but I think I know what he was looking at, and it was us. focus is off now that we've kept still. So I think you just picked up our movement. On these hard roads that we missed some of those male leopard tracks from earlier. So I've come back, I've checked it, they haven't gone off to the east. So now my next hunch is that they might have come a little bit further to the west towards Treehouse. So we're going to go have a look. Wow, that was a very interesting and strange looking thing there. But I think it's sand, but I'm going to double check as well. It looks... It's sand, but if you have a quick look, and you'll see why I stopped, as Bryan shows you there, it just looked like it could be the back of a lion sleeping. You see just to the right of the screen there, as you drive flash past, it just looks like it's that slight lion-like color, but it's a mound of sand. Jeandré calling in the distance, unfortunately quite far from the road. I'm not sure if we can pick it up with this wind that's starting to pick up. Quite close to the Treehouse waterhole. And hopefully there's something exciting in store for us there. Still no tracks. I think it's one of these mysterious flying leopards. Just past that mound of sand that had a very lion-like feel to it, and Safari was wondering, does that count as a lion sighting? Well, if you wanted to, Safari has, but I'm not going to count it because unfortunately that lion definitely didn't have a heartbeat. Kitty cats or wildebeest or zebra or anything, where are you? If I was one of the prey species, I would find a nice protected sheltered spot and I would have bed down to chew my cud and ruminate. Nearly at the Treehouse waterhole. Hopefully there's something there. I'm afraid there is nothing. So we're going to continue on. I'm taking a bit of a gander because if those male tracks were Tingana, he quite often might move up through and onto Shabam Road across, so maybe we can find some tracks there. Some impala rams. Yeah, get a better view of them from around the termite mound, so we'll scoot around. Hello, boys. They'll be quite happy with all the little new shoots coming out, both from the grass species and from the tree species. That's one of the things that makes impalas so successful, that they're not stuck eating one particular thing. They will browse and graze. You can see that little shimmer on their coat. That's a little nerve reaction to try to keep flies off them, and you'll see quite a few different animals doing that. They're heading off down towards the drainage line. You can see they move quite carefully. They do stop, listen and look, make sure there's no potential threats. Ooh, looks like there's a whole... What's going on over there? Let's just move. There's a little bird argument by the looks of things happening in that jackal tree, so I'm going to move to where we can possibly get a view. To the right slightly, right in that tree there, so you can see, I'll see the movement now. Come down a little bit. Where? There, up to the right. Just hold there for a second. There we go. It's quite a difficult one, but it is in the middle of frame there. And it is a really wonderful bird. And you just saw that flash of red of the feet. There we go, and the beak. So guys, let's see what birders are out this morning. Who can identify those birds feeding on that lovely jackalberry fruit? We've seen monkeys feeding on it, now we're seeing a bird species feeding on it. Actually, I think most of you who watch radio get that. But it is an African green pigeon. You can see it blends so well with the green of the jackalberry. But they're very, very interesting from a pigeon and dove family point of view. And I'm going to ask you, who can tell me what is the difference that they have? What is the main difference that they have that the other members of the dove and pigeon family do not have? What specialized adaptation do they have that the other members of the dove and pigeon family do not have? And send your answers through to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live if you are more technologically savvy. So let's see who knows the answer to that one. Search for big cats this morning. Lily B's noted that we haven't seen cheetah in quite a long time, and Lily's wondering, where did they go? Lily, if only I knew, we would find them. No, I'm only playing. Unfortunately, I think, especially with this little bit of rain, they would have moved more towards the gabbro soils, closer to the Kruger and then the Magnoleti. So with this bit of rain, it's a much better grass system there, so there's going to be quite a lot more grazing animals there, and I think the cheetah probably, they also do prefer the gabbros, but they've probably moved more towards the gabbros now that there's been a bit of rain and there could be some permanent water in that area, or semi-permanent water in the pans. So that doesn't mean that those two boys might not arrive again while they're searching. So while we continue to search in this area, we're going to cross across to Jamie, who has got one of the uglier animals we get out here, often said only with a face only a mother could love.
Now, in terms of faces that only a mother could love, all we got to see of that particular animal, and can still see if you focus intently, sort of in the middle at the bottom of your screen, is the disappearing bottom of a warthog. Now, personally, I happen to think that they are rather attractive creatures. Unfortunately, we don't get to sit and watch him as I chat about why I think that they are slightly misunderstood, because he has decided he's also feeling camera shy this morning and has disappeared off into quite a thick block. But I did stop for just a moment because I thought I heard a squirrel alarm calling. Now, while you've been with Brent, Scott, James and myself have been scouring the area to try and work out exactly where it was that the Arethusa guides saw these tracks of young Madiba crossing into Vuyatela. And at the moment, we haven't had much success, but there's one slight criticism in that there is a very large tractor dragging a very large tyre along the road, which, whilst it does make the driving experience much more pleasant, does serve to slightly obliterate any tracks that might be around. So what we're doing at the moment is Scott and James have gone off that way along Rebecca's and then to Philemon's cut line. I've taken Shabam, so basically what we're doing is doing a loop of this entire block. Scott's walked all the way through here, still no sign of young Madiba, just the tracks of Shadow crossing out. But he is in here somewhere because she didn't cross out with him, and the guides did tell me that they saw tracks coming in here. Now, the next point of attack is to head through to Treehouse Dam and see if we can pick up his tracks there. But in the meantime, while we are driving along this road and searching for his tracks, just go back one moment. I've actually got male leopard tracks. They're not clear at all, but it looks as though they're coming down this road, down Shabam, and quite possibly out the other side. I didn't see them crossing Gowrie Main when I came in. I'm just trying to work out exactly where they came from. They came from around here. Now, this is getting more and more mysterious. Sometimes it seems to me that the leopards in this place grow wings and fly across roads, or quite possibly I sometimes think they walk backwards just to confuse matters. Now Now, just as we head across to check Treehouse Dam, I just wanted to make sure I can see this block nice and clearly. If he is hiding away in here somewhere, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. And we're going to set the scene. Now, picture both Lou and Tara deep in concentration, in final control, concentrating on managing both Brent and myself, which, as you can imagine, is a full-time job. And they're concentrating... Oh, Lou and Nikki in final control. That's what my head said to me. I don't know why that other word came out of my mouth. But it's Lou and Nikki in final control. And they're concentrating on radios and coordinating the whole show. And Lou is very deep in concentration in directing us. And all of a sudden, there are screams exploding from the corner as Nikki stands up and starts throwing things at a vervet monkey who has decided that a place full of rather delicate electronic equipment is the place to be. And I can just imagine, I sort of wish we had been there, parked outside final control with Jigger's camera pointing inwards, so that we could have seen the scene of chaos as a monkey terrorized poor Lou and Nikki. They did manage to get it out. The monkey was completely unscathed, but it is a... In offices, sometimes there are still wild animals about, looking to cause and wreak havoc. So a highly entertaining image in my head. And as we make our way, and we've finished with our monkey story, terrorizing the ladies in FC, I believe that Brent has a bird to show you up a tree, and quite a big bird. We'll catch up with you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. And very interestingly, I was asked very recently about Maribou storks, and we don't see them that often here on Djuma and Arathusa, but we have found one perched atop a marula tree, often called the old man of the bush. They look like sort of very balding old men. And we can't really see, we can just, if we have a look at that stork's legs, they often appear very, very white. And even though their legs are actually sort of dark grey, the reason is they actually defecate on their legs on purpose. And it's to help with thermoregulation. You can hear the squirrels are unhappy. I'm not sure whether it's because of the stork. It is a possibility. But we're going to try and move a little bit closer. I just wanted to make sure you guys got a good view of the stork before we try to go closer. So we're going to try and move a bit closer. Another nickname the Maribou has, my dad's favorite nickname for them, it's the Undertaker of the bush. You quite often, not so much in this part of the world, but up in Botswana and East Africa, you'll find them at lion carcasses and stuff with vultures. And they do just have that sort of very much an Undertaker look about them. We're just going to slowly go closer. We're just going to stop here for a bit. Make sure he doesn't fly. So guys, I just got to give an update to F. F also at Vulture's Nest Junction, Nyala Road South, there were 3. while we're looking at this Maribou stork, we're just going to cover that green pigeon question quickly. And Gerda came the closest. She said maybe the main difference is that they can hang upside down to feed like parrots. And that is correct, and that is because of their foot structure. And they have what you call zygodactyl feet. So they have the same type of feet as parrots. So they have 2 toes facing forwards and 2 toes facing back, which gives them a lot of agility in the trees, whereas the rest of the pigeons and the dove species have 3 facing forward, 1 facing back. So they're unable to feed like the green pigeon. The green pigeon is almost a parrot crosser pigeon, especially they've got that wonderful coloring as well as those zygodactyl feet. Okay, we're going to try and sneak a little bit closer again. Stalking a Maribou stork live here on Djuma Private Game Reserve. Not a bird we see too often, so quite exciting. And I know quite a few people have been wanting to see one. I just hope he doesn't fly. Just going very, very slowly, keeping my engine revs and trying not to drive directly at him. I'm just going to take an oblique angle. How's that, Bryan? It's a very upset squirrel, and I do think it's possibly from the stork, but I'm hoping as I peer below the stork that there's actually a leopard around. But common sense prevails, and I think it is the stork. They would definitely, if given the opportunity, catch a squirrel, or if they found a nest, they would eat the squirrel babies. It'd be quite difficult with that really big beak to get in there. And you can see how he gets that sort of nickname, the Undertaker of the African bush. Incredibly large bird. Well, as lucky we've been this morning to find this Maribou stork. Anna Marie says this is the first time she's seen one. So all of those keeping bird lists out there, this might be a nice add-on to your bird list. Maribou stork, or the Undertaker of the bush. Squirrel is very upset. We're going to move around a little bit again. I just want to have a look where that squirrel is looking to make sure that he's alarming at the stork and not possibly something else. So continuing with the Undertaker theme, Astralina says they're the funeral parlor managers. Now we're just going to try and find the squirrel who's shouting so much. Keeping my eye out for a leopard possibly. Oh, we just jumped seats. I'm just going to try and not disturb him. Keep moving away at an oblique angle. Might be able to get a head-on view of him as well. Oh, we're in danger country here. I'm referring to the lots of aardvark burrows around here, and we don't want to sink into one. Oh, through the danger area. Come on, Maribou stork, find us a leopard. goes. And he's very close to the treehouse waterhole, so he could be here to take advantage of the catfish in there as it dries up. And off he went. Squirrels kept quiet, so that sort of leads me to believe he landed.
Yeah, I landed there.
That leads me to believe that the squirrel was alarm calling at that Maribou stork. And very tall birds, 150 centimeters in length, from 120 to 150 centimeters. But a nice one. I hope those of you who didn't have it on their bird list have added it on. There you can see that area that I was quite worried about while we were driving. You can see all those sandy patches there that denote artifact excavations. Make our way back to the road now. Still hasn't really warmed up. Bryan's even got a blankie on, and I haven't removed one layer yet this sunrise safari. The stork we normally see as a saddleboard stork, and Remay and Anna Marie are quite curious what the height difference is between a Maribou and a saddleboard stork. And the saddleboard stork's 145 centimeters tall, so a big Maribou stork would be 5 centimeters taller than a Maribou stork. I mean, then a Maribou would be 5 centimeters taller than a saddleboard stork, a big Maribou. So yeah, there's another vehicle on the way, and we've got another view of the stork, so just going to have a quick chat and you guys can have a look at the stork again. Morning. How's it, Abs? Sharpen for. Yeah, Lortum fit. Very quiet morning. Yes, Abs. Maribou stork, this is our big predator of the morning so far. There was in Konzo one in the Ingwe, went into the block between Vulture's Nest and the Moratti, and then I think that Mampimpan for Shadow crossed into Hoffman's. And Ngala? So there's in Konzo of 2 crossing into Sibambili, but that's it so far. Cheers, enjoy everyone. There we are back, guys. Morning meeting over again. And we leave and he's probably going to head down to the treehouse waterhole, try and catch himself some catfish. Of the sunrise safari.
Welcome back, and I'm still seriously confused about how this leopard has managed to be so mysterious. And of course he is making us work for this particular sighting. I still cannot work out exactly where it is that the Arethusa guides saw him crossing into Vuyatela. What I'm doing right now is one big loop just to double check that I haven't missed anything. Moving along, just checking in the drainage lines and having a look to see what we can see there. But really, really cool that you got to see a Maribou stork. I haven't seen one of those in a while, so really, really nice to see. I wonder if these Inyala will know where the leopard's hiding. I bet you they do. But they're keeping their secrets. And also proving to be quite camera shy as well, disappearing off into the drainage line. Obviously not wanting to tell me where they've seen the leopards. Now, we will be back in this area again this afternoon for the sunset safari. We're all very, very interested to see where Madiba has vanished off to. We know where Shadow is. She's disappeared off into Hoffman's, just south of our boundary. And it would be great to get to see where Madiba's decided to hide himself, especially since Brent was on those really, really fresh male leopard tracks, also quite close to the area that we're in now. I'm just wondering if maybe there was some interaction there last night that we didn't know about. But that will be my plan for the sunset safari. Hopefully the weather will clear up a bit, and the wind seems to have dropped, so my fingers are crossed that everything will be a little bit more relaxed. So a big thank you from Jeandré and myself to everyone out there, and to Nikki and to Lou in FC, and Eugene for his technical genius. I will see you all tomorrow, this afternoon, sorry, for the sunset safari.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to meander up towards the quarantine clearings. Fingers crossed there might be some general game up there for the last few minutes. But we've seen that Maribou stork, which is not something we see very often. And those of you who have traveled in Africa before, if any of you have ever been to Kampala, which is the capital of Uganda, it is incredible. It's not the cleanest city in the world, let me just say that first off. But there's an incredible population of Maribou storks in Kampala that live on the buildings all around there, and they feed off all the sort of waste created by humans. And you can get in the city center hundreds upon hundreds of these Maribou storks lining all the buildings, and quite a scary thing. And you imagine walking down the main street of Kampala with the undertakers staring down at you from above. So it has been a relatively quiet sunrise safari, but never dull and boring. We got to see a new bird for a few of you on the live safaris, the Maribou stork, and got to look at a baboon's tail. And I know Jamie and I both were unlucky with our tracking this morning, but that can change in a heartbeat out here in the African bush. That's one of the best things about it. Whose first Maribou stork was on this live safari, says they always look old to her and she would love to see a young one. Well, Gerda, unfortunately a young one is possibly one of the ugliest babies of any animal out there. They look very much like the adults except without the pink red. They've got a very dark black face, and they are quite ugly, just like the adults. I would suggest, if you want to see a picture of a young one, if you look online, you should be able to find one. And the place I've seen the most is at the Gadigwe Heronry in the Okavango Delta. It's in Oxbow Lake, where you have marabous, yellow-billed storks, herons, open-billed storks, all nesting in the same set of Zyzigium trees, which is a waterberry. So it's an aquatic tree that grows in the Delta, and it creates a nice, safe environment for them to nest in. Now we've made it up onto quarantine, and quarantine is as quiet as the rest of Djuma, it seems, this morning. We do have some nice termite mounds out to the left, one grey go-away bird taking off into the distance. But as we... Oh, we've got some guinea fowl. Yay! Some guinea fowl. So as we roll on towards the end of this sunrise safari, it's been absolutely fantastic having you out with us. And thank you very much for your questions and comments. We really do appreciate them. And thanks to the team in Final Control and to Bryan on the back there and the thumb. And for the last couple of minutes, we're just going to sit and listen. We've got a crested barbet calling near us, and we've got a nice little group of helmeted guinea fowl feeding across away from us. And hopefully the sunset safari will provide a few more mammals, but the best thing about being out in the bush is that you never know what you're going to find, whether it be a Maribou, stork, a wild dog, or a leopard. It's always great to be out there, and there's always fantastic stuff to look at, and I just can't wait for that first set of wildflowers to pop out. So from us, all of us out here at Wild Earth, have a fantastic day or morning or night, wherever you might be in the world, and we're going to send you over to the guinea fowl for the last few seconds.